Okay, grade 6. This is a new mathematics lecture in grade 6, semester 3. This is lecture 3, which is multiplying and dividing fractions. So in this lecture, we will learn if we have two fractions, how we multiply them, or how can we divide these fractions. So we will learn how to multiply or divide fractions. This is our lesson. What are the objectives of our lecture? بس خليني أشوف. Let me see. Yes, Zain, why are you late? So in this lecture, we have many objectives. Objective number 1, as a reminder, I will remind you of the fraction form or how to write a fraction in mathematics, or what do we mean when we say a fraction. Then I will remind you how can we simplify or reduce a fraction. Also from last year, I will remind you of addition and subtraction of fractions. In grade 4 and in grade 5, you have studied addition and subtraction of fractions. So all of these in objective 1, these are as a reminder from last year. Objective number 2, we will learn new in this lecture how we multiply two fractions. Then in objective number 3, how can we divide two fractions. Objective number 1, what is the fraction form? Always in mathematics, when we say a fraction, directly I should remember the form of a fraction or how to write a fraction. Always, whenever we talk about a fraction, I should remember this form. First, we have a line here. This line is called the line of a fraction. Above the line, we have a number. We call it the numerator, and below the line, we have the denominator. So when we talk about a fraction form, we mean a numerator over denominator. Always this line, we read it over. So numerator over denominator. And in mathematics, the general form of a fraction is A over B. So A is a number which is the numerator, and B is a number which is the denominator. When we talk about fractions, there are special fractions in mathematics. Why are they special? I will tell you now. When we have a fraction A over 1 or any number over 1, for example, 5 over 1, 7 over 1, 10 over 1, 13 over 1. Whenever the denominator of the fraction is 1, directly I say this fraction is equal to A. So if we have 9 over 1, it's equal to 9. 11 over 1, it's equal to 11. 2 over 1 is equal to 2. 5 over 1 is equal to 5. This is the first special fraction. So whenever the denominator is 1, directly the fraction is equal to the number in the numerator. The second special fraction is 0 over B. In the numerator, we have a 0 over any number. For example, 0 over 5 is 0. 0 over 7 is 0. 0 over 2 is 0. 0 over 10, it is 0. 0 over 9, it is 0. So whenever the numerator is 0 over a number, directly I will say my fraction is 0. The third special fraction, A over A, is equal to 1. Whenever the numerator is equal to the denominator, this fraction, we call it a whole unit fraction. It's always equal to 1. So 2 over 2 is equal to 1. 5 over 5 is equal to 1. 10 over 10 is equal to 1. The last special fraction is A over 0. Whenever the denominator is 0, we say this fraction is undefined or does not exist. So whenever the denominator is 0, then the fraction does not exist. So we have no fraction with denominator 0. It's not accepted to have a fraction with denominator 0. Now I will give you examples of different fractions. This fraction, we read it 3/4. Always we read the numerator, then we read the denominator. The numerator is 3, the denominator is 4, and this fraction is read 3/4 because whenever the denominator is 4, it is read quarters. Now the second fraction, 5/9, the numerator is 5, the denominator is 9, and it is read 5/9. 2/3, the numerator is 2, the denominator is 3, and it is read 2/3. So these are things we have seen in the years before. I'm just reminding you about them. These are reminders. Now, simplify or reduce a fraction. To simplify or to reduce a fraction is to make it smaller, is to make it less. We have two kinds of fractions in mathematics. Either a fraction might be reducible or irreducible. If it is reducible, so it can be simplified, it can be reduced. How? By dividing both the numerator and the denominator by a common factor. For example, if we have 20/12, we can divide 20 by 4, we can divide 12 by 4. So here the common factor is 4. So we divide both the numerator and the denominator by 4, and if we divide 20 by 4, we get 5, 12 by 4, we get 3. Always the answer fraction or the fraction we get in our answer, it should be an irreducible fraction. What do we mean by irreducible? It cannot be reduced anymore. There is no common factor between the numerator and the denominator. I can divide both by. So what do we mean by irreducible fraction? It can never be simplified. For example, 13 and 8. Between 13 and 8, there is no common factor. They cannot be divided by 2 or by 3 or by 4 or by any other number. Let me remind you of something very important concerning fractions. Whenever we talk about a fraction, for example, 13/8, whatever we do for the numerator, we should always be able to do it for the denominator. يعني مثلا if I gave you, for example, the fraction which is, let me do something. If I gave you the fraction, for example, which is 8/9, and I asked you to reduce this fraction, we cannot say we can divide 8 by 2 and we can divide 9 by 3. This is not accepted. Whatever we do in the numerator, we should do for the denominator. If the numerator is divided by 2, the denominator should always be able to divide it by 2. Let me give you another example. For example, if I have the fraction which is 10/4, who can tell me what is the common factor I can divide 10 and 4 both by? By what?
2.
Yes, both are divided by 2. So 10 is divisible by 2. So I write 10 divided by 2, and 4 is also divisible by 2. So I can divide both by 2. So here I say the common factor between 10 and 4 is 2. Any question about what I said till now? These are all revision from last year. Any question, guys?
Miss, I have one question.
Yes,
But
Karim.
first, is my voice clear or not?
Yes, it's clear. Talk. I'm listening.
Okay. Miss, you said here we want to simplify it. So you put 10 over 4 and both they are divisible by 2.
لحظة
But Miss,
شوي. لحظة شوي يا كريم. 10 خليني ارجع اكتبها. So 10 over 4 both are divided by 2. So we divide 10 by 2 and we divide 4 by 2. شو سؤالك؟
okay, Miss, أنا سؤالي, which one do we pick? افتراضاً we pick two numbers, they are both divisible by 3 and also divisible by 2. So which one do I divide
سؤالك
by,
كثير
3 or
حلو يا
2?
كريم. خليني اعطيك example. خليك معي. Can you stay with me please?
Yes, of course.
Suppose, Karim, I gave you the fraction which is 24 over 18, right?
Right.
Okay. 24 is divisible by 2 and 18 is divisible by 2, صح?
Yes.
Also, 24 is divisible by 3 and 18 is divisible by 3, صح؟
صح.
So, قد ايه بتقسمون اثنيناتهم؟
ما that's my question.
ما فكر وقل لي، عم بسألك. إذا divisible by 2 divisible by 3 يعني صار divisible by
6.
صح، برافو. It is divisible by 6 يا كريم، مظبوط. So whenever we have a fraction divisible by two numbers لازم نقسمهم على الأكبر. يعني دايما نحن يا كريم بنقسم على الجي سي دي. بتتذكر الجي سي دي اللي أخذناه أول السنة؟
ايه بس كيف يعني بنقسمه على الرقم الأكبر؟ يعني بنقسمه على 3؟
لا، إذا انقسم على 2 وانقسم على 3 يعني بينقسم على 6. سو بدي أقسم على 6 فوق وتحت. بس لك يا كريم شوف فيك في طريقتين. يعني أنت يا كريم إذا جيت قسمت هلا فوق على 2 وتحت على 2 اللي شو بيطلع الجواب؟ 24 divided by 2 قد إيه؟
24 12 وتحت 9.
وتحت 9. تتذكر قبل شوي شو قلت شغله كثير مهمه؟ انا دائما الانسر اللي إلي لازم يكون irreducible. يعني ما عادش فيني صغره اكثر من هيك. 12 over 9 reducible ولا irreducible؟
reducible.
قد ايه بعد فيني اقسمه؟
divide by 3.
بعد
divide
فيني
3.
اقسمه بعد فيني اقسمه لهيدا الفراكشن على 3. فاذا بيجي بقول 12 I can divide it by 3 و9 I can divide it by 3. هلا 12 by 3 قد ايه يا كريم؟
12 by 3 is 4. لا 12 by 3
و9 by 3
9 by 3 is 3.
طب اطلع لي على الفراكشن اللي هو 4 over 3 reducible ولا irreducible؟
irreducible.
صح. إذا أنت عملت هيك أنت اشتغلت صح. افترض حدا تاني من رفقاتك بس أعطيتهم 24 over 18 يعني قلت لهم أنا reduce the fraction. بس لحظة شوي. افترض أنا أعطيتكم الفراكشن 24 over 18 وقلت لكم reduce. أنت عملت الطريقة الأولى، قسمت أول شيء على 2 وثاني شيء على 3. صح اللي عملته هون. This is correct. افترض حدا تاني من رفقاتك اجى قال لي 24 في نقسمها على 6 وال18 كمان في نقسمها على 6. خلينا نقسم 24 على 6 قد ايه؟
24 على 6 12 18 4
و18 على 6
3.
طلع لي بهالجوابين يا كريم. هيدا الجواب وهيدا الجواب هن ذاتهم ولا لا؟
أكيد زيتون.
يعني إذا عملت هيدي الطريقة صح وإذا قسمت دغري فرد مرة على 6 كمان صح. فهمت علي؟ فهمت علي هلا يا كريم كيف؟ أنا
فهمت عليكي.
What I care about is the answer fraction. It should be irreducible. يعني ممنوع يكون عندي جواب بعد بقدر أعمل له reduce. بدي ضلني أعمل reduce ليصير الفراكشن irreducible. مش الحال؟
مش الحال.
اوكي ثانك يو. حدا عنده شي سؤال على reducible و irreducible fractions غير كريم؟ Any question guys? Okay. So this is what we have to know about reducible fractions are the fractions that can be simplified. Irreducible are the fractions that cannot be simplified. Now I want to tell you a very important thing please لأنه بعدين بدي استعملها. Inverse or reciprocal of a fraction. Suppose I have a fraction, for example, 3/5. This fraction 3/5, I want to find its inverse or reciprocal. Any fraction I want to find its inverse or reciprocal, it's very easy. We flip both the numerator and denominator. What do we mean by flipping? Changing places. So the numerator becomes a denominator and the denominator becomes a numerator. This is what we mean by inverse. So inverse or reciprocal of a fraction, we flip both the numerator and the denominator. I will give you examples. 8/11 is the fraction. Its inverse or reciprocal becomes 11/8. 9 its inverse becomes 1/9. مين بيقول لي كيف ال9 صارت 1/9؟ مين بيشرح لي؟ كيف الانفرس لل9 صارت 1/9؟ ليش؟ Yes?
It's because there's only one number.
ايه بس يكون عندي number شو يعني؟
لازم يكون الرقم 1.
أي رقم بده يكون 1؟
numerator.
من وين اجت هيدي ال1؟ هيدي ال1 من وين خلقت؟ ما كانت موجودة هون، من وين اجت؟ 9 شو هي نمبر ولا 9 هي نمبر ولا فراكشن؟ نمبر. كيف بحولها لفراكشن؟ حيلا نمبر لنحوله لفراكشن بنحطه 9/1 صح ولا لا؟ شو يعني 9؟ 9/1. شو يعني 7؟ 7/1. شو يعني 10؟ 10/1. So 9/1 لنحولها الانفرس اللي إلها وفليب شو بتصير؟ 1/9. مش الحالة من اجت هيدي ال1؟
Yes.
Okay, let me ask please حسن بواب. Yes حسن بواب. 7 حول لي اياها لفراكشن شو بتصير؟
7/1.
برافو. جيب لي الانفرس لل7/1. شو الانفرس اللي إلها؟
1/7.
برافو يا حسن. It is 1/7. So حيلا نمبر عنا لنحوله لفراكشن بنحطه over 1. لنجيب الانفرس او الريسيبروكال بنعمل فليب. هلا بدي اسال بليز اسيل. يس يا اسيل. اسيل. طيب عبد الله. عبد الله.
Yes ma'am.
عبد الله إذا عندك فراكشن يلي هو 11/5. What is the inverse of 11/5? شقلبهم يا عبد الله. فليب 11/5 شو بتصير؟ لمار شرف الدين.
Can you read it again? I don't hear you.
اوكي لمار شرف الدين.
Yes, miss.
11/9. What's the inverse of 11/5?
5/11.
Bravo, it is 5/11. Now I want to ask Lamar Shahab. Yes, Lamar.
Yes, miss.
Lamar, suppose I gave you the fraction 1/4. What is the inverse of 1/4?
4/1.
شو يعني 4/1 يا لمار؟ شو قلنا بس يكون الدينومينيتور 1 مش فينا نلغيه؟
Yes, yes.
شو بيكون الانسر؟
4.
4. So 1/4 its inverse of is 4. يس يا عبد الله شو مالك؟ عندك شي سؤال؟ ما أنا مش سامعيتك كنت عشان هيك. Any question Abdullah? عم بيروح صوتك كتير يا عبد الله. طيب إذا عطيتك fraction يا عبد الله 3/7. What's the inverse of a 3/7?
7/3.
Bravo, it is 7/3. So the inverse or the reciprocal of a fraction, please always remember we flip both the numerator and denominator. Now pay attention. Given a fraction a over b, so if I gave you a fraction a over b, if a and b are relatively prime, what do we mean by relatively prime? There is no common factor between the numerator and the denominator. Suppose, for example, I have the fraction 8/5. عشو بينقسموا ال 8 وال 5 اثنيناتهم؟ قولوا لي.
Nothing.
ما في صح؟
Yes.
ما في common factor بين ال 8 وال 5. طيب إذا عندنا 9/4, what is common between 9 and 4?
Nothing as well.
Nothing as well. So 8/5, since there is no common factor between 8 and 5, there is no common factor between 9 and 4, directly I say these two fractions are irreducible. Suppose I gave you the fraction which is 6/7. شو رأيكم بالفراكشن 6/7? reducible or irreducible?
Irreducible.
ليش؟
Because we can't simplify.
There is no common factor صح؟
Yes.
بس فيني أقول لكم شغلة أسهل. اطلعوا على 6 وال 7. شو بنسميهم لل 6 وال 7؟ هن two numbers that come directly after each others, right?
Yes.
6 and 7 are successive numbers or consecutive numbers. So if we have two successive numbers or consecutive numbers, then the fraction is irreducible. يعني إذا بعطيكم مثلا الفراكشن يلي هو 9/10, reducible or irreducible?
Irreducible.
لأنه 9 and 10 are successive, are consecutive. Okay, 3/4, reducible or irreducible?
Irreducible because they're successive. Or,
Bravo. 21/20, reducible or irreducible?
irreducible.
So بس تشوفوا fraction لتعرفوا إذا reducible or irreducible، شوفوا النيوميريتور أو الدينومينيتور، إذا كانوا رقمين ورا بعضهم دغري بنقول it is irreducible، مش الحال؟
Miss, I have a question.
Yes.
نعم.
If we have like 19 over 20.
ايه 19/20 مش بيجوا ال 19 وال 20 ورا بعضهم دغري؟
Yes.
يعني هني successive.
So what if they're 20/19? Are they still successive?
ولو ال 20 مش بتجي ورا ال 19 دغري؟
Yes.
يعني هني successive صح؟ يعني إذا كان الصغير فوق أو الصغير تحت ما بيأثر، المهم يكونوا ورا بعضهم، يعني إذا كان عندي 3/4 أو 4/3 دغري هودي بنقول irreducible لأنه successive، مش الحال؟
Yes, Miss, thank you.
Okay, another case. If A is equal to 1, then the fraction is irreducible. يعني بحيالله fraction بس النيوميريتور يكون 1، بس يكون عندي 1 بالنيوميريتور دغري بنقول the fraction is irreducible. يعني 1/8 irreducible, 1/15 irreducible, 1/99 irreducible since we have 1 in the numerator. Any question?
No, Miss.
Okay.
No.
Let me continue now to start with operations on fractions. As we can add numbers, we can subtract numbers, we can multiply numbers, we can divide numbers. Also, we can add fractions, subtract fractions, divide fractions, and multiply fractions. From last year, I want to remind you of addition and subtraction of fractions. هيدا reminder مش شرح جديد. When we talk about addition and subtraction of fractions, always whenever we see two fractions and in between we have a plus or a minus, we should make sure that if the fractions are like fractions or unlike fractions. What do we mean by like fractions? يعني إذا أنا بعطيكم 2 fractions لنعرفهم إذا هن like, we look at the denominator. نجي بنطلع على denominator للأول, it is 10. The denominator of the second fraction is also 10. Since the denominators are the same, يعني ساعتها بنقول they are like fractions. So like fractions if they have the same denominators. لما بنكون عم نعمل addition like fractions, directly I get the result fraction or the answer. In the answer, my denominator stays the same, يعني ما بيتغير. كان 10 بالأول وبالثاني بضلوا 10 بالجواب. كل شيء بنعمله we add the numerators since we have a plus. So 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 over 10. Since there is no common factor between the numerator and the denominator, so it is an irreducible fraction. It cannot be reduced. لأنه من بعد ما نجمع أو ننقص دايما بدنا نتأكد إنه جوابنا هو reducible or irreducible. So let me read. Like fractions if they have the same denominators. So لأعرفهم إذا like لازم يكون عندهم same denominators. آخر همي النيوميريتور. We get a result fraction. بالresult fraction, its denominator is as denominator 1 and denominator 2. مثل ما شفنا الدينومينيتور بقي مثل ما هو ما تغير بالجواب. Its numerator, we add or subtract numerators 1 and 2. يعني إذا عنا plus بنجمع الأول مع الثاني بنحطه بالنيوميريتور. إذا عنا minus بننقص الأول ناقص الثاني وبنحط الجواب. Always the result fraction جوابنا, we should see if we can reduce it or it is irreducible. Let me give you an example. 9 over 4 minus 3 over 4. Since we have two fractions, in between we have a minus. لازم اتأكد إذا كانوا like or unlike. I look at the first denominator, it is 4. The second denominator also it is 4. So since the two denominators are the same, directly I say we have like fractions. So we will get a result fraction. Its denominator stays the same مثل الأول والثاني. يعني ما بدي أشوف بكرة حدا قال لي 4 plus 4 is 8. ما بنجمع الدenominators. The denominator stays the same. All we do, we say 9 minus 3, it is 6. Now 6 over 4, this result fraction, we should see if we can reduce it or simplify it. مين بيقول لي 6 وال4 اثنيناتهم بينقسموا على قد ايه؟
2.
برافو. So 6 على 2. مين قال 1؟ ال1 ما بنقسم عليه. So 6 and 4, they are both divisible by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 3 over 2, is it reducible or irreducible?
Irreducible.
ليه؟ شو اللي خليكم تعرفوا؟
Because they come after, the numbers come after each other.
Bravo, 3 and 2, thank you. 3 and 2 are successive numbers. They come after each other's, so my fraction is irreducible. This is about addition and subtraction of like fractions. This is the first case in addition and subtraction. Suppose I looked at my fractions and I found them unlike fractions. What do we mean by unlike fractions? 2/5 plus 1/4. The first denominator is 5. The second denominator is 4. Are the denominators the same?
No.
So they are like fractions or unlike fractions?
Unlike fractions.
Okay, see what we do with unlike fractions. If they have different denominators, so they are unlike. What we should do is we change them into like fractions. يعني نحن لازم نخليهم يصيروا like. How do we do this? Multiply all fraction 1 by the second denominator, then we multiply all fraction 2 by the first denominator. So this is what we do. So 2/5 we multiply up and down by 4, which is the second denominator. 1/4 we multiply it by 5. 2 times 4 is 8. 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 5 is 5, and 4 times 5 is 20. Now I got a fraction with denominator 20, another fraction with denominator 20. Now I have like fractions. Since we have like fractions, I directly get the result fraction. My denominator stays at 20, which is the same, and 8 plus 5 is 13. 13/20, it is an irreducible fraction since there's no common factor between 13 and 20. Yes, Lamar Sufan, what's your question?
No, I just raised my hand by mistake.
اوكي فهماني كل شيء لحد هلا. انا بعدني عم ذكركم، بعدني انا ما شرحت شيء جديد. كل هود الاشياء انا عم ذكركم فيها from last year، من سنه الماضيه. انتم مفروض هودي كلهم سنه الماضيه ماخذينهم.
مس نحن هدول من جديد عم نسمع فيهم. اول مره انا بسمع like fractions و unlike fractions صراحه.
كريم صراحه انت هود اللايك fractions ماخذهم بجريد 4 ورجعتوا اخذتوهم بجريد 5.
مس انت ما بتذكر الشيء المسك اذا
اوكي
قلنا like unlike.
اوكي ماخذينهم مبلا كريم، راجعهم بتتذكرهم. Now I want to discuss multiplication of fractions. I have the first fraction 8/9, the second fraction 6/5. In between we have multiplication. بالمultiplication I don't care about like or unlike، بس بالaddition وبالsubtraction like و unlike. بس نشوف multiplication البروسيجر كثير سهلة. We multiply numerator 1 times numerator 2 over denominator 1 times denominator 2. So we multiply 8 times 6 over 9 times 5. إذا لاحظتوا شيء كتير مهم، ما ضربت 8 times 6 وحطيت 48، وما ضربت 9 times 5 وحطيت 45. ليش؟ رح أقلكن ليش. لأنه لازم اكتبهم بهيدي الطريقة وخليهم أرقام صغار، يعني 8 صغيرة و6 صغيرة، 9 صغيرة و5 صغيرة. بينما إذا صار عندي 48 و45 صاروا أعداد كبار. ليش عم بعمل هيك؟ لأنه هون بهيدي الستep بدي أعمل simplify بين النيوميريتور والدينومينيتور. بدي شوف is there any common factor between the numbers of the numerator and the denominator? Between 8 and 9, is there any common factor?
No.
Between 8 and 5?
No.
6 and 9?
No.
3.
They are divided by 3, so we can
Yes,
divide
yes.
6 and 9 by 3. 6 divided by 3 is
2.
2. We write 2 above it. 9 divided by 3 is
3.
3.
so we write 3 below it. Now 8 times 2 is 16. 3 times 5 is 15. مين بيقول لي 16 over 15 is an irreducible fraction?
Because they're successive.
Because they're successive.
Okay. Okay, our time is over. We still have division of fractions for next week. When you come to school, we will finish it. I thank you all and see you all next week. Bye.
Thank you.